It's race 2 of the day here at Brands Hatch for the Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge Great Britain. Cars are on the grid, and with podium ceremonies for British GT having finished, the track can now go live, ready for this 25-minute race. It's the 4th round of the championship for these identical cars. These are all, of course, the 3.8-litre 718 iteration, the Type 982 Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport. They have 6-cylinder 3.8-litre normally aspirated engines. They weigh in at 1,400 kilos. They belt out 425 horsepower. The championship split into 2 classes. You've got the pros and the AMs. The pros are largely young, what you might call career racing drivers. The AMs are just that, keen to go racing, and many of them are Porsche stalwarts over many years, like Peter Chambers or Nigel Rice, for example. That's Theo Edgerton, who is on pole position. This grid is based on the results of race 1 in class. So in other words, all the pros go ahead of all the AMs, no matter where you finished overall. So Jack Bartholomew, who spun out of the race and didn't finish, actually gets 5th on the grid because there are only 4 pros that actually finish the race, so he goes onto the back of the pro class. There in the green and white car you see on the inside of row 3, and then all the AMs slot into position behind. Theo Edgerton has yet to be beaten in the pro category, and Ian Humphries, who you'll see in number 27, 6th on the grid, has yet to be beaten in the AMs. 25 minutes, and the cars accelerate away onto their formation lap. The grid, Theo Edgerton on pole, winner of the earlier race, and Ethan Hawkey, his runner-up. We'll start with him at the front of the grid. On row 2 is going to be 77, that's Charles Clark, in the car carrying the colours, there you see it, of worked Porsches from the early 80s Group C era, and Matt Armstrong lining up alongside him. 3rd row of the grid is going to be Jack Bartholomew, former single-seater racer turned Lamborghini racer, and Ian Humphries, number 27, is the leading AM, and he is 6th on the grid. Alex Malikin led the class early on in race 1. He starts 7th. Nigel Rice is 8th on the grid, and then 9th is the Swiss Hong Kong driver Kurt Leimer, and Pete Chambers, who is now not only a vastly experienced driver, but 73 years of age. He will start 10th. 11th is Charles March, and 12th Ambrosio Perfetti, who had a spin in the opener and then elected to come straight into the pit lane, having spun at Surtees, for which he got a black flag. Then you've got Carl Cavers, and the grid would have been completed by Michael Price. Now, the reason he's not there is that Carl Cavers had a spin coming out of Hawthorns in the earlier race, and as he spun across the track, hit Mike Price's car with enough force not only to puncture a tyre and damage the suspension and fire him into the gravel, but to put him out of the rest of the day. So I'm afraid to say that we are 1 car short going into this 2nd race. And Theo Edgerton, unbeaten in the pro class, unbeaten in the AM class, is Ian Humphries. So are we going to have a first-time winner in either of those categories? Well, if anyone's going to upset the apple cart in pro, it is Ethan Hawkey, who has looked very impressive, and he made a demon start as well in the first race of the day. Ethan Hawkey is the all-white car you see there, run by Team Parker Racing. His sister, Esme Hawkey, winner of Pro-Am in Carrera Cup GB last year. This is the view out of the Beluga car of Ian Humphries. Great noise these Caymans make up towards the grid. They all run on Michelin tyres, so trying to generate some warmth into them, ready for the start of the race itself. There is Jack Bartholomew, who had a 3rd and a 2nd at Thruxton, but then that retirement, spinning into the gravel in race 1, has certainly not done much for his championship aspirations, because there's not much to choose between the points you get for each position. Therefore, you can ill afford to give them away, because you're not going to be able to suddenly make up a deficit of, let's say, 20, because it's just very, very hard to keep outscoring people by sufficient numbers. So that's really dealt him a blow as he comes then up towards the grid. There is Kurt Leimer's car, spectacular in his colour, behind Nigel Rice there, number 15. Nigel Rice making his way up towards the grid. And as the cars arrive in place then, up to pole comes Theo Edgerton, and he slots into position now. With him at the front then is Ethan Hawkey. Now, he made a very good start earlier on in the day. If he can do it again, then he's going to be well worth watching to see if there's an opportunity for a possible race victory here. The cars then all in place, and are we then going to be in for 4 out of 4 for Theo Edgerton? All is about to be revealed then as the cars slot into place. In a moment, they will have the green flag from the marshal at the back. That will be replaced by the 5-second board, which has just been shown. In turn, you then get the lights that will go red. Engine notes rise, and so round 4 of the Porsche Sprint Challenge GB is go, and not for Theo Edgerton. It's not, because he makes a dreadful start that brought out the yellow flags, and suddenly life changes immeasurably for him. Ethan Hawkey it is who leads the pack up towards Paddock Hill Bend, and as they turn through, Hawkey is away and clear. Powering their way towards Druids then. Second is Matt Armstrong. Third round the outside, Jack Bartholomew, but Charles Clark is just going to be able to brave it out with him, and Clark goes third on the inside line there. So suddenly Theo Edgerton is about to really have to dig deep now. He's got one place back, has he, on the inside line? Yes, he gets there ahead of Nigel Rice. So Edgerton having to fight hard, 25 minutes this race. He's got the time in which to do it, but it ain't going to be easy, that's for sure, as Bartholomew now goes up the inside and goes through, gets ahead of Clark. Ian Humphrey's view that was, but Ethan Hawkey is away and clear at the moment then, so another good start, and Theo Edgerton's bad start has really done for him. So he's fighting, he's going to be able to get back into the mix, but how long will it take him to clear the traffic before he gets himself in a situation where the gap to Ethan Hawkey is too great? So Hawkey trying to build that gap there as Edgerton gets past Humphreys, so he's now getting himself back up towards the pro-class opposition. On board with Humphreys, paddle shift gear, flips it down, and then into Sterling's they come through that left-hander. And they're back onto the power, fire the car down towards the right of Clark curve. 51, Ambrosio Perfetti keeping out of trouble in this race. It's been a bit of a checkered season thus far for the reigning Am champ as he comes into Clark curve behind this man, Ian Humphreys. Just twitches the car ever so slightly, but look at the gap Ethan Hawkey has got at the end of lap 1. He is clear in second place as they come over the line. Matt Armstrong, Jack Bartholomew is third there. Fourth is Charles Clark, and Theo Edgerton is certainly all fired up now. He's running in 5th place, in fact, as the cars head up the hill. It's about to become 4th, is it? Because the TCR entry outbreaks on the inside line. Charles Clark goes ahead of the Into Racing entry, so it's a place brought back by Edgerton. But he's still having to really get onto his toes with, what have we got, 23 minutes still to go. So the race leaders make the run along Cooper Straight once more. Fastest lap, of course, Ethan Hawkey, but Edgerton is a man on a mission, and now he's right there up behind the car of Matt Armstrong, so he's picking his way forward. Armstrong, of course, has already dropped back one place to Bartholomew, but Edgerton, therefore, is running in 4th place now. Down through Hawthorns they come. And Theo Edgerton looks to the inside line, lines it up to have a go at Westfield. Armstrong tries to move across and defend, but Edgerton's just got greater speed off the corner and goes through on the inside line. And actually Armstrong might have to get busy in order to defend from Charles Clark behind him as well, because Clark also, we know, he's been a feisty racer so far this year. Now there is Armstrong going through. Edgerton, having cleared him, is getting away, but the reason he's doing all this chasing is because of this bad start. They just went and he wasn't ready, was he? Either it wasn't in gear or he wasn't looking at the lights, but they just absolutely left him for dead. The car never moved. It was as though he just wasn't ready at all. So very strange, but it's given us a lively race to enjoy now as Edgerton fights back. And fight back he does. So Edgerton is up into 3rd place. Now the fastest lap, intriguingly, Jack Bartholomew. So Ethan Hawkey leads, Bartholomew quicker second, and Edgerton is up into 3rd, the man yet to be beaten this year. So this could be one of those races that gets better and better as it cycles through now, as the gaps start to come down between the leaders. On board with Ian Humphreys, who is ahead of Nigel Rice and then Alex Malikin within the Am class battle. Carl Cavers, who did make it out despite being the cause of the incident that rather did for Mike Price earlier on in the day. He's next in class, and Ambrosio Perfetti is still a rather distant 5th, so there's more work for him to do yet. Race leaders accelerate their way once more down through Hawthorn. So 25-minute race, of course, this. Clock ticks on down, and it is purely the time. There's no bonus lap tagged on at the end as Armstrong goes through. Where is Edgerton in the meantime? What's he doing in sectors? He's not yet as quick as Bartholomew, but Bartholomew actually not as quick either as Ethan Hawkey in the 1st sector. He's much quicker in the 2nd, though, and there is the gap between them coming down. So Bartholomew, aiming to right the wrongs of earlier on in the day, is indeed closing on the man ahead of him. It's going to be really interesting now to see what pans out between these two. If they start squabbling, that will, of course, enable the charging Theo Edgerton to get up with them as well. He's there in third place. The leaders come across the line. A second and a half is down to 4/10. Bartholomew, fastest lap of the race now. There's 54 going through then. That's Theo Edgerton. Turns the car up through Paddock Hill Bend. And look back, 4th and 5th, Matt Armstrong and Charles Clark. But you see the time they've lost in the space of just 3 and a bit laps. Edgerton works the car hard coming out of Druids. The TCR entry, TCR Lee Brooks' team that's had a really good pedigree in Ginettas and Clios and Seats. Lee himself, touring car racer for a time, his father John Brooks, hot rodder, and now turning the team's attention to Porsche racing, and with success, no doubt about it. Ethan Hawkey in the anonymous all-white Team Parker racing car, leading the red line entry of Jack Bartholomew. Simon Leonard's team, Red Line Racing, one of the crack Porsche squads. Jack Bartholomew learning a lot by running with them, and look, he's easing his way now up onto the back of the race leader. So as the cars come towards us this time around, Jack Bartholomew catching for the race lead, but if Ethan Hawkey makes life tough, Theo Edgerton, who's only 2 seconds back, should be able to close that margin. Through they turn, nose to tail, down towards Sterling's now. Hawkey in the white livery, the green and white colours of Bartholomew, who looks the quicker, but is it going to be an easy ride to get past? Theo Edgerton then trying to close all the while. He's almost there behind them. He was 2 seconds back at the start of the lap. In the first sector, he was quicker than both. In the second sector, he was quicker than both. So net, the 3 leading cars will be bunching up over the timing line. That puts now 4 laps in the book. Hawkey goes through. Bartholomew, a 1/5 of a second behind him, and it's now 1.3 seconds covering the leading 3 cars. Theo Edgerton must make bad starts more often because it's given us a lively start to the race, no question about that. Through they come, almost as one now. Into Graham Hill Bend, through the trees. That great shot underlining just how scenic a circuit Brands Hatch is. Along Cooper Straight once more. Now the fastest lap of the race, still that of Bartholomew, who goes for the race lead, tries to unsettle Hawkey. The door is open. He's got the inside line, he's got the lead as well. Good move. Jack Bartholomew goes by, and straight away Theo Edgerton tries to take full advantage of that. Comes up to the outside of Hawkey then as they plunge downhill here. Almost side by side. Hawkey to the in, Edgerton to the outside line. Sweep through Hawthorne, and Edgerton goes wide in, tight out. Is he going to get the switch back? No, he's not, because Ethan Hawkey comes across with really sharp elbows there and says, no way, bye, Theo. Out of Westfield they come, drop downhill, make the climb up the other side. Edgerton lines up, absolutely charges by. Nothing Ethan Hawkey could do to stop that from happening. Great move, straight past goes Edgerton, he's up into 2nd place. So now, doing absolute best in sectors, what can he do about the race leader? He's got, of course, 17 minutes in which to try. So Jack Bartholomew turns through. Heads up towards the line, and as they come past the pits, the starting point for this new lead situation, Bartholomew's Edgerton is 1.4 seconds. Third, bit lonely now, Ethan Hawkey, and then for 4th and 5th, there they are. Matt Armstrong just ahead of Charles Clark, turning their way out of the right-hander of Paddock. And to the inside line goes Charles Clark, gets his nose chopped off. He's up the curb, that compromises the line. So Theo Edgerton hunting down Jack Bartholomew, Charles Clark hunting down Matt Armstrong. And as they turn their way out of Graham Hill Bend on to Cooper Straight, these two, both inexperienced racers, going at it for 4th place overall, both in the pro category. Because they're not quite AMs, they're not as experienced as some of the pros, but they are a comparable amount of experience, I suspect. There you've got Kurt Leimer, who in turn has now got himself ahead of Carl Cavers. There is Carl Cavers, works in the video game industry. Behind him is Pete Chambers. And then it's Charles March at the rear of the pack. Charles March, aka Charles Henry, Gordon Lennox, the other March and Kinrar. And as you see, Ambrosio Perfetti there, 51. He's on the tail of Alex Malikin. Now, Perfetti is running 4th in the AM class, but he's last year's AM champ, so you'd anticipate he could make some progress. Now, who is that? That's Carl Cavers, looking like he's had a moment, because he was with cars all around him, and now he's not. So Cavers, I fear, at Surtees has had a drama and survives it, but with a lot of time lost. As there, down to Sterling's comes Alex Malikin to the inside of Nigel Rice. Nigel Rice hangs onto the place. He arrives at Clearways as the leaders break the beam. Fastest lap, Theo Edgerton, gap 7/10. Malikin on the attack to get past Rice, on the defensive to keep Perfetti at bay. past the pits they go. Now that's the race leader, Jack Bartholomew, and Theo Edgerton with a much more movable car around Druids, sliding it, correction required. He's up behind him as Perfetti almost gets into the back of Malakin there, tries to get the inside line, look, coming up the hill, flash of the lights, indicator on as well by Perfetti. It's all busy in the cab, goes to the outside line as they turn through the hairpin with a novice cross on the back, meaning I've done 6 races or less. It is Alex Malakin just hanging on to 3rd in the AMP class, and he's, for a man that's only done track days before this year, learning fast. Ambrosio Perfetti is an experienced driver, that's for sure, and he goes to the outside line now as they swing once again into the left-hander of Surtees. Onto the Grand Prix section of Brands Hatch then. Up front, it remains Bartholomew ahead of Edgerton. Hawkey going through shot 3rd. There are the leaders. And then 4th and 5th, Armstrong still clear of Clark. 4th and 5th, those two run. Now, what about Edgerton on this lap? In the first sector, he was just under a 10th faster. He's about to get to the end of the middle sector. There's the yellow line that says the timing point, and he is 2/10 up on Jack Bartholomew, and he's got 14 minutes in which to do it. So it's all looking pretty good for him at the moment, as long as he doesn't make a little mistake. Jack Bartholomew slides the car. It's great to watch coming out of Clark Curve. Edgerton up behind him, so despite that pop start, he comes over the line. And 2/10 of a second now is all that there is between them. So Theo Edgerton has made the race very lively indeed. He's up with Bartholomew even before the half-distance mark now. Nose to tail, it's 8-wheel Cayman in the lead. Look, they are so close. And again, Edgerton's car with a little bit more drift around Druids. Theo working out now where he can make the move. He knows he's got the pace. To the inside line he goes, and Edgerton pounces at Surtees, and he gets the job done. Makes it look easy, doesn't he? So through on the inside line goes Theo Edgerton. He picks up the race lead. Jack Bartholomew straight away tries to fight back, but you just get the feeling that the way that Edgerton has been able to catch him, it's a rather forlorn hope by Bartholomew, because now Theo Edgerton should be able to get clear. They run towards us then, brake hard, going to Westfield through the right-hander. So now Theo Edgerton will try to keep building that advantage. You can see already that he's done so by a couple of lengths. Jack Bartholomew in that 2nd place, dropping away. So Edgerton was 2/10 better in sector 1. He's pulled away by 7/10 already in the middle sector. Shows what a year of experience in these cars has, because last year Theo, with all due respect to him, did not look like the standout driver. It was very much James Dornan and then Tom Jackson and then Theo Edgerton that was really the pecking order, but he's the more experienced of those in the pro class this year, and it's paying dividends as Perfetti still all over the back of Malakin. He's all over the back of Rice as they in turn now come down towards the right-hander of Clearways and Clark Curve, and Perfetti just can't find a way by. Up towards the line they will come. Nigel Rice at the head of this queue. And as they break and turn through Paddock Hill Bend, Perfetti getting a bit frustrated now because he is still well and truly stuck behind that gaggle of cars. Now there is Perfetti again, up through Druids. Downhill they drop. We've got 8 laps in the book. So what, if anything, can Perfetti do? He's on the back foot, having not finished the first race at Thruxton, so if he's going to try and keep hold of that AM crown, he really does need to start outscoring people, and the AM leader is Ian Humphries, who, like Theo Edgerton, is on target for 4 out of 4 here. Race leaders plunge downhill, and here the AM battle plunges towards Hawthorns as well. As they do so, Nigel Rice keeping Alex Malakin at bay. What have we got? 11 more minutes on the clock. And Edgerton, having got past Bartholomew now, is starting to try and build that gap as the race-leading cars are coming over the timing line. Meanwhile, over at Sheen Curve, it's still busy and lively. Perfetti on the back, as you see, of Malakin in the black and red car there. Alex Malakin, new to circuit racing, although he's done quite a few track days. And the Russian driver, based in Surrey, for Into Racing, goes defensive. Fends off Perfetti, his teammate, at Into as they come into the corner. Ambrosio Perfetti, who runs under a Norwegian licence, based in London, comes over the line. The confectionery magnate then dives down towards paddock and oh so nearly tags the tail of Malakin there, who braked just a little bit earlier than Perfetti was expecting him to do. They got away with that contact, but Perfetti is still stuck. All the Chupa Chups lollies painted across the car, but he can't find a way past Malakin. Down into the left of Graham Hill Bend, then comes this train of cars, which is for 7th, 8th and 9th overall. I thought I heard a big squeal of tires from somebody, but the order doesn't appear to have... Oh, yes, it has been shuffled. It's Kurt Lima, that's the squeal. And there he is. He was a bit further back, but it was a moment that Kurt Lima has had coming out of Druids into the approach to Graham Hill Bend. He was running in 11th place, Kurt Lima, having fallen back behind Pete Chambers. So the Hong Kong Swiss driver has a moment and gets back on track now. So there, Ian Humphries, who is continuing to dominate the Beluga Racing entry, the 46-year-old Birmingham driver, who came through Brickcar. He was the Endurance Championship frontrunner, a race winner in 2019, came into this series last year, was runner-up in the AMS with 3 wins, 9 podiums, and now very much on target to be the benchmark driver in the category, because he is on target for 4 out of 4, and he's being helped by everybody else in the class scrabbling behind him. Charles Clark still can't clear Matt Armstrong as they come into paddock, but not for the want of trying. Turn through together and now make that run up the hill once more. Clark dives to the inside but gets a face full of Matt Armstrong's number 9 entry. So as they turn through the corner, Armstrong for Team Parker Racing keeps the Into Racing car of Clark at bay. And we've got one heading into the pit lane. It's Alex Malakin, and Nigel Rice has gone a missing. So at the back part of the circuit, seemingly, there is the answer. Nigel Rice is in the gravel, and Alex Malakin is in the pit. So that's good news for Perfetti, because it means he can move up the order. But to the frustration of the team, into the pit lane comes Alex Malakin, whose Into Racing car is damaged, and you can see why it's damaged, because he well and truly got into the side of Nigel Rice at Stirling's there. I'm not sure there was a gap, but there was when he'd finished. But the gap really benefited Perfetti, who went through. So Humphries, Perfetti, Peter Chambers is the 1, 2, 3 now within the AM class. Yellow flags wave because the snatch vehicle is on its way at Stirling's. And where is Nigel Rice's car? There it is. So Colin Oakley, the clerk of the course for the Porsche Sprint Challenge, trying to keep the race going rather than force the safety car, because it would eat into most of the remaining time of the race, I suspect, trying to get that out of the way from there under a safety car provision. So the race leader, Jack Bartholomew, back in front. How has he got ahead of Theo Edgerton? Because as he's come across the line, the timing screen shows a new order, and looking into the distance, has Edgerton got a problem? He's dropped a lot of time to Bartholomew. So where did that happen, and what's happened to Edgerton? His last lap was a 38. So there's the new race leader, and Theo Edgerton, somewhere, you can see him in the background, has had a moment. Now, I'm not aware that we've seen anything on camera about it, but clearly we've had the change of lead back again, and there Theo Edgerton has got to try and do this all over again. In sector 1, he's half a second slower than Bartholomew. Now, has he got a problem? Is that why he's lost so much time and can't retaliate? But he's had an off, that's clear. Look, you can see the back of the car. He's looking decidedly dog-eared. Where he did that and how he did it and why he did it, work out for yourselves. But certainly, that's part of the answer. So Edgerton has been off the road and lost the lead back to Jack Bartholomew. So is, with 6.5 minutes to go, the 100% record about to come to an end. Goes out of Stirling's in the middle sector. He's again slightly slower, so he's picked up some rear damage here, and Edgerton is not being able to respond now. Comes out of Clark Curve. There's still time in the race to enable him to push on. So 2.8 seconds was the margin, having lost the lead, and that's gone up, has it? Yes, to 3.2. So Jack Bartholomew, all of a sudden, is now looking very strong indeed for a race lead. There's Ethan Hawkey in 3rd place, and his last lap was a 35.1, but Edgerton another 0.4 slower than Bartholomew. So it, by all reports, was Edgerton running wide through the gravel at Clearways, just getting a little bit wide and running off the road. So that's what has done for the lead, and the damage picked up in the car as well, and he's now struggling to retaliate. Jack Bartholomew finally looks like he's going to get the race win, doesn't it? So he led early on, having worked his way to the front, then he lost out to Theo Edgerton, and now he's back up front trying to preserve it, as still Matt Armstrong keeps Charles Clark at bay, and that gap has widened between those two as well, look, as they drop into Hawthorns again here. 5 minutes are on the clock in sector 1. Interesting. Edgerton fractionally faster. They're getting to the end of sector 2 as they are about to break the beam. Bartholomew goes through. Now Edgerton goes through and is hundreds slower. So he's still not being able to consistently chip away. There are the yellows. That might be why, actually, in fairness, he did drop back a little bit by hundreds in the middle sector, because he was more respectful of the yellow flags. But either way, as far as this battle is concerned, Armstrong is keeping Clark well and truly behind him. So over the line they go, down now through clearways, then Clark curve, and up towards the timing line they will run with 4 minutes and change on the clock. The lead gap is 2.8 seconds. Edgerton actually did take out 3/10 last time, so maybe he's not done yet. Into the braking zone for Druids, they now turn. There is 77. So Charles Clark goes through, and as he turns his way down through Graham Hill Bend, 4 minutes are on the clock. That's Ethan Hawkey going through in third place, a bit in no man's land here. He's not catching anybody, he's not being caught by anybody really, so it's going to be another podium for him. It'll be a second and a third out of the day for Ethan Hawkey. So 3.5 minutes still to run. Edgerton is a man on a mission. He's another 3/10 quicker than the leader within the first sector. Matt Armstrong there in fourth place, rides the curb on the outside. Another of the novice drivers attracted to the championship this year. Feels odd, doesn't it, that you can be in the pro class and yet be a novice. But as a karter, now turning into car racing, a good karter too, Matt Armstrong is put into the pro class. Quick dab of the brakes, through Sheen curve they come now. Brake hard for Sterlings, go left. Nigel Rice's car moved out of harm's way, and as they drop down towards Clark Curve, the leaders go by, and Edgerton is now, what, 2.7 seconds back. His last lap was only a 10th quicker. He's not going to get there in time unless Bartholomew has a moment. Here is fourth, Matt Armstrong, who all of a sudden has shaken off Charles Clark as they go through, not quite together anymore. So that gap has certainly widened, and Theo Edgerton then ruining his mistake for having gone wide at clearways. That's what it did for him. He's there in second place, and with dirty tyres, with a bit of damage at the back of the car, just not being able to bring the gap down to Jack Bartholomew, which is odd, given how well he went early on. There's another car heading into the pit lane, which might be Ambrosio Perfetti, who comes into the pit. There he is. So Perfetti's torrid day continues, and that's just put Peter Chambers up into second in the AM class. So Perfetti comes in for why? Has he got some damage? Oh, yes, he has on the front of the car, look. So Perfetti's had a skirmish somewhere, and it's a bit hot and bothered. So Ambrosio Perfetti's rather unhappy season, actually. He's not getting much better. In he comes. Team has a look. The Porsche technical team has a look. And the race leader is going to get one more lap out of the race. A lap is a minute and 33, and Jack Bartholomew is going to come down shortly to start that last lap. As he does so, he's just got past Carl Cavers in the traffic. There he is, and Theo Edgerton, to the eye, looks a bit nearer in second place, but not near enough to think about mounting an attack. So Bartholomew comes by, and that last lap was a 34.8, and a 33.5 for Edgerton means it's 1.4 seconds. Traffic, I suspect, was something to do with that, because if he caught the back marker in the yellows at Sterling's, he'd have to have been slow and stuck there. But Edgerton suddenly might have renewed impetus now. He's a bit offline, isn't he, there? Look, going through Druids. Let's see what the first sector time is like as they drop downhill then. The timing point is along Cooper Straight. Last lap of the race then. Bartholomew leads Theo Edgerton. Jack, there he is, Jack Bartholomew over the timing line at the end of sector 1. And they are to the 1,000th identical in terms of time. So nothing gained from either of them as they turn through. So the last lap of the race, and Theo Edgerton's 100% record about to come to an end. So as he comes into Hawthorns, he's still trying, he's still pushing, possibly given this lifeline by Bartholomew, delayed in the traffic a lap ago, but with only really 4 corners on the clock now. It ain't going to happen for Edgerton unless Bartholomew makes a mistake. Comes then now up through Sheen Curve. And so Jack Bartholomew in the gravel earlier on in the day looks like he's going to win the second race, but even this has not been an easy race for him. He's way out wide though over the curb. So too is Edgerton, who catches the slide, accelerates down towards Clearways. And so the checkered flag is at the ready. Jack Bartholomew turns now into Clark Curve, lines it up though for the checkered flag. It is going to be a maiden win in a Porsche for Jack Bartholomew, who's going to win round 4 of the Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge Great Britain. Second, Theo Edgerton, his first defeat of the year. And that was self-induced after a bad start on a trip through the gravel. Third goes the way of Ethan Hawkey. Fourth should be, but only just. Look, Matt Armstrong with Charles Clark right on his tail at the end as they cross the line. The gap between them, 0.156 of a second. And one man is going to maintain a 100% record, and it's this man. It's Ian Humphries, 4 out of 4 in the AM class. Turns through Clark Curve, goes for the clipping point, takes off the lot, up towards the line. Checkered flag is waved, and Ian Humphries comes through then to win his class. Jack Bartholomew wins outright. Ian Humphries, the AM victor, and Jack Bartholomew, there he is, a very happy man, possibly relieved as well, because it's not been an easy start to the season. He comes into this with, to an extent, a big reputation, does Jack, because he's raced in the BRDC Single-Seater Championship, raced in British GT briefly, but in Super Trofeo, both in Europe and in Asia and in the World Finals. So he's an experienced driver coming back to circuits, some of which are new to him, like Thruxton. He never raced at Thruxton before, but he does know Brands Hatch, and he's put that experience to good use. Go back to 2016, Jack Bartholomew, one of the drivers for Aston Martin in the British GT Championship in the GT4 class. So round 4 of the Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge GB, won by Jack Bartholomew, ahead of Theo Edgerton, Ethan Hawkey third, with then Matt Armstrong in 4th. 5th goes the way of Charles Clark, ahead of Ian Humphries and then Pete Chambers. Charles March, 8th from Kurt Lima, who had a spin. Carl Cavers, 10th. Ambrosio Perfetti retiring with damage to the pit lane. Nigel Rice retiring with a bit of damage in the gravel at Stirling's, and Alex Malikin retiring with damage. There's a theme here, into the pit lane. So that is going to give Jack Bartholomew a real boost as far as confidence and indeed championship points are concerned. And the series, which is going to be a regular support act to British GT, it all began like this, round 4, with this dreadful start by Theo Edgerton. So that threw him right down the order to begin with. He was able to regroup, make amends for that, starting to pick off places as the leaders went through Druids, with early leader being Ethan Hawkey. Jack Bartholomew working his way into contention, making his attack for the race lead at Surtees. Through he went on the inside line, and Edgerton was right up with them as well. Charles Clark busy squabbling with Matt Armstrong, and yet even though they were together race long, he never quite managed to get by. Edgerton did go ahead of Bartholomew for the lead going into Surtees, and then battles raged on lower down. Nigel Rice keeping Alex Malikin and Ambrosio Perfetti at bay, but that would all kick off as Malikin clambered up the side of Rice's car, shoveled him into the gravel. Perfetti was out of the race, late race as well in the AM contest. So as Edgerton had a trip through the gravel, the lead went back to Jack Bartholomew, and he was on target for his first win of the championship season, with Theo Edgerton taking second and Ian Humphries winning the AM class to maintain his 100% record. So a great drive by Jack Bartholomew, and lively racing from the Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge Great Britain. Silverstone's the next stop. And now from Brands Hatch and David Addison, goodbye.